Thank you and welcome to another episode of Black Coffee and Crime. This week is episode 42, where we'll be talking about the serial killer William Suff. Before we get to that, of course, we have introductions. My name is Brandy. We have Brandy W as well, and Jackie joins us every week on Black Coffee and Crime. Every Tuesday, we drop new episodes on YouTube, but you can also visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Black Coffee and Crime. If you have any questions or comments, you can hit us up at info@blackcoffeecrime. All right, so starting with the church announcements. The announcements are as follows. Always respect your pastor and obey your ushers. We've been good this past week. We've had a lot of respect this past week and comments. So for those of you who watch and comment, thank you so much, especially for those comments that are constructive and informative, because we like to learn stuff from, other enthusiasts and junkies and everything else. So we like that information. Everybody is healthy and hearty. I was on the sick and shut in list last week because I had COVID shot number 2.
Whew. That's a rough one.
Oh, baby, it took me out. Did you have it, Jackie? Did you get your shot?
No, but my whole family did. And let me tell you, every last one of them was high on that second shot. They was out of her. They were high and they did not feel well. And I mean, they thought, the reason they knew they were high because they were tripping, they were laughing. My dad was like, I feel like I'm high as hell. I haven't felt like this in a long, long time.
I get my second one this week, so we'll see.
Did they have the Moderna or the Pfizer?
Moderna.
Okay, I got Pfizer.
They got Moderna.
Okay. Yeah, I felt sick for at least 2 days. First, you have the slight pain where you get the shot, and then I felt a little feverish, and body ache and headache. So it really felt like the onset of the flu. But then after that, I've been fine. So I got my shot on last Wednesday. So by Friday, I was fine. Which, I'd heard a lot that you would have side effects with the second shot. So, I was fine. So
is there one that's more side effects than the other one?
I don't know. Well, we'll find out when you get your Moderna shot.
Yeah. Well, we gonna pray
when you get
that
shot,
I don't have to. I don't need nothing.
Pray about it.
Yeah. So
I'm scheduled for my first one on Thursday. So
okay. Yeah, that one's typically like you just have the slight pain. Make sure you move your arm because it's gonna hurt and get stiff. Other than that, you're fine. So this past weekend, Mother's Day. So happy belated Mother's Day to everyone within the sound of our voices. My Mother's Day was fine. How was yours, B? You must be laughing at something. Jackie, how was your Mother's Day?
It was okay. My daughter is amazing. She always remembers my son. They're very, very mother anyway, clingy. So it was great because I got them. That's important.
That's good. My daughter she's very considerate, and she I can mention something that I want to get myself, and I'm not asking for it. I just say, oh, I like this, or we're talking about something, and then the next holiday comes around, and that's what she gets, and I'm like,
oh, that's so cute.
So, this year, she got me a pair of AirPod Pro, and so I was very surprised, and yes, and a little Kate Spade charger cover because she knows I like Kate Spade. Yeah, hours. So yeah, I'm a Kate Spade junkie.
Brandy.
So I had a Zofran. How many days before? Was it the night before, Brand?
Yeah, you had a Zofran on Saturday.
Yeah, I had a Zofran on Saturday, so that's a coma pill, like put you in a coma. So I slept through Mother's Day, but I did have dinner.
And if whoever's not familiar with Zofran,
and I had breakfast too.
If you're not familiar with the effects of Zofran or whatever it is, it's an anti-nausea medication, but it knocks you on your ass. Like, how you take Benadryl, you might lose a day.
Yes, it does.
Zofran, you're gonna lose at least 3-4 days during when you take the pill, and then after. when you first wake up, you still have about 14 to 16 hours of lethargy after that.
Mm-hmm.
So Zofran really takes you up.
I was really drowsy today too. I hope today's the last day of drowsiness.
I told you
Yeah.
Saturday. I told you Saturday. I said you can be sleeping till Monday.
And
My husband, when he lost his toe, that was one of the things they gave him because it made him kind of nauseous. They gave him that, and he'd be out of there for like 2 days.
Yeah, Zofran is very serious. So well, I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you guys had a good Mother's Day. You know,
You
I
too.
went
Great one.
to a funeral service on Saturday for someone's mother. So it was bittersweet knowing that the day before Mother's Day that they had to lay her to rest. It was sad. She was very young, yet well loved, very well loved. It was a beautiful service. Um, so those are the church announcements. But I do have something else. Today I am wearing a T-shirt. Shout out, and this is not sponsored. I actually paid for the shirt. As anything that we talk about in the show, we pay for the stuff. So this is a shirt by, let's get it, Love and Live. So this is a new company by a college student. So you can see that, and there's also some lettering on the back. You can hit them up on Instagram, so you can see the different T-shirts and colors. New merchandise to drop soon. So that is _LOVENLIVE _ on Instagram. I will tag him in our description. But yeah, go get your shirt. Fits nice, nice and snug. So snug stays right on the boobs. Yeah, right there. And this actually, this gray is actually kind of like an iridescent. So depending on the light, you'll be able, it changes colors a little bit. So shout out to Live and Love. Also,
Shout out.
well, I don't have a shirt on, and Brandy doesn't have a shirt on. But you, Brandy, you know somebody who's selling their T-shirts as well, but they're always sold out. So we will tag that young entrepreneur and musician in the description as well, so you can go get some of his gear. What's the name of his company? Is it Boys Wear Pearls? So yeah, Boys Wear Pearls. Another college student, a young musician. Merchandise is always sold out. I don't even think Brandy has her son. So I don't even think Elise has
sell out so quickly
because they sell out so quickly. So that is a good thing. So we'll tag both of these young men in our description, so you can go hit them up. And I'll also put something on Instagram so you guys can take a look at that. Those are the announcements as follows. Govern yourselves accordingly. All right. As always, we do have busy news weeks every week. I do know that there was a shooting. Was it in Idaho? 6th grade girl goes and shoot some students in Idaho.
I think it was Idaho.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
6th grade. 6th grade. And she killed some kids. Yeah, so you guys can go to whatever news outlet you prefer and take a look at that. I saw, as far as the news goes, I saw an old story on illicit deeds, because I love illicit deeds. And this was a story from 2010, and I just saw this like today. So this is from Philadelphia. Kendall Anderson attacked his mother, Rashida Anderson, with a claw hammer. Hit her 20 times when she was in her bed. She was asleep. This happened in 2010. Hit her 20 times with a claw hammer. She doesn't die. He tries to cremate her by putting her in the oven.
In the oven?
Yes.
How did he put all of her in the oven?
He must have folded her up and put her in there.
She must have been petite.
I would say she must be like a petite little lady, and maybe took them racks out of her.
Yeah, if you take the racks out,
I would have been hanging all out the oven.
I wouldn't even fit.
I wouldn't fit.
I wouldn't fit. I mean, not even this.
You have to do me in shifts.
Yeah, you don't do that. Yeah, I'd have a leg hanging out, like arm or something. Like, well,
Even during the dismemberment, it still won't fit. So
he didn't
it'll be
dismember her, but she was a
And,
whole person.
and then you
But
couldn't even get shifts because I don't think the oven gets hot enough.
yeah.
it doesn't. But I mean, he
What does
was
the oven go up to? What's the max
500.
heat? No, yeah, they ain't gonna do nothing. That's
But
just
you know,
gonna
black
brown.
people, we've only turned it up to 350. So she.
That's it.
Yeah, that's just gonna brown me. 500 is gonna. I'm just gonna be brown.
Right. And you know, black people, we only put it up to 350. It don't matter what
On 350 for everything. I don't care.
We're gonna be
350.
See, I don't even know what it goes up to because all I know is 350.
Yeah, we just make adjustments accordingly. So she doesn't die, and then he repeatedly smashes her head with a chair leg. Then he drags her to an alley, and that's where she remains until her family members.
I was just wondering if he had mental health, like on the books, mental health issues.
It doesn't say. Just from this, I didn't look up an additional story. I just saw this on their Facebook post. But it says that he killed his mother. This is the reason why he killed his mother. So he might have had some mental issues. He killed his mother because she took away his PlayStation 2. And mind you, this was in 2010, so we
took away his what?
His PlayStation 2.
No, she didn't. I'm not saying that is the reason, but it was still intact because certain mothers would have ran over that thing 4 or 5 times, and you bet not ask.
You said PlayStation 2? Because I have to go check because I have a gamer family, and this was in what year?
This was in 2010, so it was a while ago. So
the reason I'm asking is because the PlayStation 3 came out in 2006. That means his game system was already every bit of like 7 years old, almost, if not longer. So even if she said no, that reaction is still kind of weird. He just wanted to kill her. He just was waiting on a reason to use.
I just wonder. I don't want
as a gamer. If a true gamer, 2010, a true gamer would have already had a 3.
Right. He didn't have no board games he could have played in the meantime.
I don't know.
He was looking for a reason.
I don't know what he did. I'm gonna look this up. So anyway,
everybody got monopoly.
He was sentenced to. He pled guilty to 3rd-degree murder and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. So I don't know what type of relationship they had.
Candyland.
I don't know, because me taking away your video game is gonna make you kill me. We had a story about this with the boy from Florida.
Sorry.
Who killed his mom because of his report card.
Yahtzee.
Jenga.
You haven't heard us for the last, like, we just been naming off all kinds of games.
I've been trying to like overtalk you. Get past. I knew that it was gonna go bad when Brady said Candyland. So I just
okay, sorry.
I knew it was bad when she.
This is why we get.
So I just decided to keep going. This is why we get.
This is why I was just about to say. This is why people be saying stuff.
This is why we get these comments. It's not funny. Your jokes about the potato salad or the mashed potatoes wasn't funny. That shit was funny.
It was hilarious.
That was funny.
I'm just saying, usually when you get in trouble, your mom say, go in your room. You got all this such and such in there. Play with that.
But honestly, how many people still play Candyland, Yahtzee, Jenga?
I mean, if you have absolutely nothing to do and you a gamer, like you say,
he wasn't no game.
Take it old school. Take it old school.
No game at
all. I have to wonder if there were any other behavior issues, though, because for the anger to get so much that not only did you hit your mom, you hit her 20 times with a claw hammer, tried to cremate her in the oven. That didn't work. And then you hit her, beat her, bludgeoned her with a chair leg. So that means you broke the chair to get the chair. So
That's why I said it's more than the game. That's not game worthy. The game was already old as hell. If he was a true gamer would already have the new one. He just wanted a reason to kill his mama, and she just gave him a reason. Now we don't know the backstory. We don't know if his mama was like a farce. We don't know nothing.
Right.
But he was looking for a reason for sure.
I don't know. Some of these kids are so crazy and so just out of control. It could have been just the game.
True. You're right. True.
Who knows? If you hear anything,
I wish my kid would.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. My mama could take away my Kindle right now, and I'd probably cry. I don't know. Tell me I couldn't do that. I would take away
I got to go back to old books.
Yeah, I got to go back to old books or the rotary telephone because my mom took my iPhone.
See, my mom would told me to go in the room and read a book, and that would have been the best thing.
Oh yeah,
she ever told me to do.
You couldn't punish me with that, like going your room.
Yeah, that's not a punishment.
Yeah, that's not a punishment.
Yes, get to go in my room.
Not a punishment.
All right, so he got 50 years for third-degree murder. And that was back in.
How old was he?
He was. How was this boy? It didn't say. His picture, he looks like an older teen or young 20s. But he looks like an older teen, really, in the picture that it is. I will repost this to our.
Clearly, they said you should know better. Clearly, you know better is what they were saying.
Right. So I will repost this right now. Or did I already post it? Yeah, I'll just repost this to Black Coffee Crime so you can take a look at that, or you can go directly to Illicit Deeds. Scroll down on their post and take a look at that. All right, so Jackie, you have a story about, what was it, the preacher and his wife who were like attacked?
They had their the attacker bit their ears off, parts of their ears off, and gouged out their eyes and beat them. This was in Chicago, and they were the pastor's name was Timothy and Renee Johnson. Renee, they were over Renee's mother's house, who was 95, helping her clean up her house, doing her yard work for her, just taking care of her mom. So a dude walks up to them and goes, "Do you want to buy, you want to buy something?" And they're like, "No, we're fine." And because he said, "No, we're fine," he beats the crap out of Timothy, Pastor Timothy. And when Renee comes to help, which is his wife, she sees this happening, she's going to help, and he beats her too. And he bites their ears, pieces of their ears off, and gouged out their eyes. When the police arrested the guy, he had blood all over his clothes, obviously. The church is like really devastated. The church, he's a minister at Salem Baptist Church, and they were known in the community just for being good people anyway.
So they survived their injuries?
Yes.
Okay, so is this crack? This seems like some crackhead-ish type behavior.
I mean, his picture in.
You said they survived?
They survived.
What did
that was the Lord? That wasn't none but the Lord.
Is this a story from the neighborhood? Is this? Let me see.
Illicit Deeds. Illicit Deeds.
Okay. The Illicit Deeds. Let me tell you, if you are, in love with true crime stories, Illicit Deeds on Facebook is one of the best sources. I think I followed them after Jackie followed them because she told me about a story on their page a while ago. And they post everything. They post a lot of interesting stories, new, current and old stories. Let me see if I can pull this up. I want to see if
he's being held right now on a $5 million bond and is undergoing a psychiatric evaluation.
I would hope so, because clearly he ain't right.
And check this. Renee is a special
lady. Or just the pastor?
Both of them. He's okay. The story says the attacker bit off parts of their ears and gouged out their eyes.
Oh, so they blind.
gouge their eyes. So that, well, they didn't say gouge out, it said gouge the eyes. So,
Yeah, just gouge eyes.
Oh, we gotta keep them in prayer.
yeah.
But even with a gouge, I mean,
Says he's
you
28
can't
years
see.
old. $5 million bond.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
$5 million bond.
So clearly, he can't be out in society.
No.
And he doing this to a pastor and a first lady. He ain't doing this to some random crackhead on the street who did him wrong or something. He did this to a pastor and a first lady who ain't did nothing to nobody.
Right. Okay. So I just sent this to you. I sent that story to you, Brandy, and also just posted it to our Facebook page as well. So both of those stories we just talked about are on our Facebook page.
Yeah, we need to keep them in prayer because that's
For real.
Yeah.
They got children.
Some real crackhead or druggy type behavior.
Is the mama okay? The
95-year doesn't
They
say
didn't say anything about her. So I'm assuming, she especially since she was already in the house, probably nothing.
Yeah. Well, it also says that he was beaten. The pastor was also beaten with the shovel. He was going to do some yard work.
Yeah.
Beaten with the shovel.
if they're still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, keep them in prayer because that's weird. Random attack. That's some pretty weird shit. There's some other crazy stories in the news. I didn't listen to this young man while he was alive. Really don't listen to him now that he's dead either, to be honest. But it says that the rapper Pop Smoke, what was it, last year, that there was a home invasion and he was shot. Apparently it's come out that it was a 15-year-old that shot him. Mm-hmm. He was in the shower and there was a home invasion. And what happened was that the gentleman who killed him was 15, and Pop Smoke was in the shower apparently when the home invasion happened. And the reason why it happened is because he was in LA. He's from New York. He was in LA and he had rented an Airbnb while he was there, and he posted the address. He accidentally posted the address, and a couple guys went in and killed him. They stole a Rolex watch. And yeah, and I think Pop Smoke was what, 20 years old? Like, apparently,
he was young.
Yeah, he's really young, and his star was really on the rise. I've heard some of his music. He passed away, so that was an update. So it's crazy that
technically, I think they said like pretty much the only thing that was a big deal was the Rolex watch, and it's because he's trying to sell it to someone. He ended up selling it to someone else. So technically, it was just for the Rolex watch. I mean, it probably some other stuff, but you're only going to be tied to that now because you did all this. You murdered someone for a Rolex watch.
Here's the thing. When you steal a diamond is registered because it is etched. There's a serial number etched in the diamond. With a Rolex is like purchasing a whole ass baby because a Rolex has a birth certificate just like a human does. The moment that thing is manufactured, it has a history. So where it was sent, who was the first person who bought it, everything is recorded when you purchase a Rolex. So you can purchase a Rolex you can find a Rolex at a yard sale. The moment that you take it to get it cleaned or serviced, they're going to look up that serial number. So it has provenance. So that you can track these things. Yeah, these folks, you are going to go to jail for life for a watch. The thing is, the fucker probably couldn't even tell real time. Probably needed a digital watch to tell time. Because these kids don't know how to look at a watch face and tell the time.
If he was in the shower, just take the stuff and roll out.
And just go. Like, why'd you have to kill him? Just go. He don't know who you are. He in the shower.
Yeah.
He don't know what's going on.
Crazy stuff. So, of course, there's always more stuff in the news that we don't talk about. Because, just in the interest of time and all the bad shit that happens. All right. So, this week, our story is going to be about William Suff. Now, William Suff is Very interesting character. And the story is very interesting because he has ties to Riverside, California, which is where Brandy and I are from. So we're going to talk about his story and just the interesting places where he was uh, when he was killing and where he was dumping the body. So the way that his story starts off is that he was actually in Texas. So this is where Jackie and I are now, just in Texas. He was convicted in this 1974 of killing his infant daughter. He and his wife were convicted in 1974 of killing an infant daughter. He gets what? He got life in prison. They beat the little 2-month-old girl to death. He got life in prison. Later on, the wife was basically her conviction was overturned because they said they couldn't find evidence of her actually committing murder. Well, he's let out. He's let out after 10 years, so his sentence is reduced. So he's let out after 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so William was let out after about 10 years on this murder. Depending on the source, that the sources jump from his conviction for this murder with his first wife, and then it jumps to him being in Riverside after he gets out of prison. However, he did it twice. He had 2 kids that he did this to.
Mm-hmm.
2?
He had 2 kids that he did this to. He did it to.
So he did one after the little girl.
Yes.
Yeah. With
yes.
the 18-year-old.
With his second wife.
He was 18 when he was 40.
Yes, he did it with his second wife.
I watched this documentary.
Yeah. So the first one was beating a 2-month-old child, and then he did it again with the second child as well, second of his own kids. So let's get to Riverside. So his sentence in Texas was 70 years. So that's what he got for the first killing of the child, and he was paroled in 1984. Now, one of the things that Texas was infamous for at a certain period was the prisons were overcrowded in Texas. And they started letting people who were on death row and lifers, they started to let them go if they didn't have any incidences while they were incarcerated. So they started to let them go. Because
clearly he didn't kill men. He didn't kill men.
No.
Especially men while he's in a cell by himself.
He killed people who were innocent and helpless.
See, Texas, y'all just always got to be different.
Yes. One of the most famous cases. Oh my God, what was this man's name? I looked it up the other day. There was a guy who. Oh gosh, let me look this up. During this period, they let this man go, and then he kills some more people. His name was Kenneth McDuff. Now, Kenneth McDuff, he had heinously killed some people in the 60s, and then he was let out of prison here in Texas, and I believe he was on death row. Let's see here. He killed some kids in 1966. A 16-year-old Edna Sullivan, 17-year-old Robert Brand, and a 15-year-old Mark Dunham. He raped the girl. He was jailed in Texas, and then he got 3 death sentences for those murders in 1966. It was reduced to life imprisonment in 1972 when the death penalty was abolished. He was paroled in 1989. Okay. And then he started killing again. So this is what Texas did. When the prisons got overcrowded, they started letting people go. So that's what Texas does. Pretty much what happened with William Suff. Let go, 10 years into a 70-year sentence for the murder of a child. So then he does this again. But what he's most infamous for is the murders of Riverside, California. He was called the Riverside prostitute killer or the Lake Elsinore killer, which is where Lake Elsinore is where he stashed some of the bodies, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
he was active between 1989 and 1991. So 2 years, he killed about 12 prostitutes in Riverside, California.
And this is the crazy thing is because I didn't know nothing about him.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my mom, like, do you remember on the news them talking about the serial killer in Riverside killing women on University? Like, University's down the street.
Right.
Like, she's like, no, she didn't hear about any of this.
I didn't
And I'm
either.
like, on the news. Like, I know the paper had to have covered it. Like, I have no, like, his name did not ring a bell. Him killing women on University, I didn't know nothing about this. And apparently my mama didn't either.
You know what? Let me just do this while we're on right now. I'm going to call my mom and ask her. Because my mom used to work at a liquor store called Western Liquor Store on University during these years. And a lot of prostitutes and pimps came to her. Hey, mom, I had a question for you. In the 90s, when you were working at Western Liquor Store, do you remember like news of a serial killer killing prostitutes? You do? Okay. She said they were killing them on University. Yeah. So, like, were there people because we're talking about that right now on the show, and I don't remember any news about this because that, I was still going to school over there. Okay. Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't know if you guys hear that, but it was a certain female pimp, or bottom bitch, I guess her name was Kate. And my mom said that she used to bring her girls in because there was someone, preying on prostitutes during the time. And Western Liquor Store was located on University Avenue in Ottawa. And that is right on University Avenue. If you watch thank you, Mom. 3 miles from UCR. Thanks, Mom. So
but your mom was right thick of it. That's why she heard
she was in the thick of it working at this liquor store. And she used to work overnight because in California, you can buy liquor. You have 24-hour liquor stores, but you can actively buy liquor until about 2 a.m. So, those are the witching hours, basically. And there was an alley behind the liquor store. We used to walk to the liquor store when we were kids, but of course during the daytime. So it's 3 miles away from University of California, Riverside, which is a Division I school now. But at the time, it was kind of like the stepchild of the UC University system. So right in the heart of it. And if you watch the documentary called Born to Kill, which is on YouTube, Born to Kill, they talk about University Avenue as being the hub of crime in Riverside, which is crazy because the house that I grew up in was on Douglas Avenue, which was right off of
University
and Bobby Bonds Park, which is now Bobby Bonds Park and the Cesar Chavez Community Center. And it's crazy because I remember University Avenue. We walked up and down University. When I go home, I still walk up and down University. And there were activities there, but it was during a certain sections of University. You knew that if you were on that section of University at a certain time of night, everyone knew what you were doing. Either you were smoking, trying to get something to smoke, or you were picking up hoes. And if you were in front of Western Liquor Store, University Avenue, in front of Western Liquor Store, in the parking lot behind, you were picking up prostitutes or, storing drugs or whatever. So that's why I asked my mom, because I remember her working at the liquor store at the time, and she knew everybody. Everybody. And I think that the Riverside Raceway was still active at that time. So That was a major. It was on the NASCAR circuit. Um, so lots of activity, lots of money coming through there. So I wanted to see if she remembered. So so basically, William Suff was very. He was good at what he was doing. And the reason why he was so good at what he was doing is because William Suff worked for the county of Riverside while he was committing these murders. He worked for Riverside County while he was committing the murders. So what he would do is he would speak to the police about what they were finding with these bodies.
This is the thing that really tripped me out was,
yes.
So you have this special task force that they put together to try to figure out, they have the special task force and they need like they have to have like a headquarters or, where they all would gather. And he worked in the warehouse, so he would bring the furniture and everything that the officers needed for this task force in this certain place. And so he's asked, oh, you guys got a serial killer out there? Oh, I heard they killed another woman. And so he's in the thick of it. Like he's setting up the place for the task force to try to find the killer, and the whole time he's the freaking killer. That was like tripping me out. Like like you set up the room for the task force.
Right. One of the things they do say about killers and like even with arsonists, they like to go back to the scene of the crime, or they will insert themselves in the case where it's unnecessary for them to do so. Because it's kind of like
insert himself. He worked. I mean, did he get a job there purposely?
No, I think he worked there prior to.
So I'm saying he didn't even need to put himself in the thick of it. It was his job to bring them the furniture.
So maybe so you think him asking about, asking the cops was kind of like I'm gonna rub this in your face because I did it, and I'm asking you what you.
Yeah,
definitely.
He didn't need to put himself in the middle of the crime. That was his job, to be in the middle. That was his job.
He definitely did that.
Yeah. So he was basically in a perfect position as far as going undetected because he was the unlikely guy. And he seemed like a nice guy. And why would Bill be the one that's killing these prostitutes? Some of the things that he would do, he was active between June 28th, 1989 and December 23rd, 1991. I was like in junior high at this point. So yeah, we were in junior high school. So basically what he would do is he would rape, strangle, and beat and torture these prostitutes. And then he would mutilate them. He had a crazy way of mutilating them, and it wasn't always a formula way he would mutilate them. Some of the women, one of the women that was found like Elsinore, he cut her breast off and then he threw it. It's like he cut her breast off
and chucked it into a field.
Yeah,
just chunked it up there at the top of the hill. Just
crazy. Another woman that was killed, they found a light bulb inserted into her vajayjay. I don't know if that was prior to that postmortem or was she still alive when he did that, but they found an intact light bulb. It might have, I don't know if you can get how soon after death you can insert a light bulb into someone's vagina. You would think that if he did it before, you would think that during the death, her dying, it would constrict, she would like break it or something, but it was fully intact. So yeah, he worked as a warehouse clerk for Riverside County. He was arrested. So, and he was still on parole. So that's the thing. He was on parole for murder in Texas when he got hired by Riverside County.
And when he's staging their bodies,
yes,
propping them up like so their legs would be kind of like gapped open, and for all of them they were all staged.
Very strange.
That's weird.
So
and this is the thing, when they were investigating, they were saying, okay, these are all white women that he doesn't kill. he is a white male. He's killing white women, and he changed it up on them and went and killed a black woman.
Do you
As soon
think
as
that
they
was,
announced it.
do you think that was a way for him to continue to kill, but keep them off of his tail, or he just was?
It had nothing to do with keeping off his tail. He was playing games with them. Oh,
He was playing games with them for sure.
You think I only kill white women? But
Oh,
here,
let me show you this.
yeah, let me
No.
show you this right here.
I was like, you little shit. We
And
didn't
he
even do
probably
nothing.
could have killed a black woman if they hadn't said that.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't going to. It was just a
Oh.
game to say, look what I can do. I can do a black woman too. Just cocky.
So let's see here. He actually, let's see, his last murder, he found in 1992, so January 1992, after he committed his last murder in December of the prior year, he got stopped by the police, and they found a knife, bloody knife, and some other murder objects in his car. So that's what stopped him from killing. So potentially, if he had been arrested that day, he would have continued to kill, because you have basically an unlimited supply. The late 80s, early 90s, this is when crack is king everywhere. Crack was king everywhere. And I can tell you, being from Riverside, knowing exactly the areas where he was killing and dropping these bodies off, very familiar with what was going on there. There was a section of University Avenue at Bobby Bonds Park. There was a Head Start that they had closed. The Head Start were they still using that Head Start in the 90s? I don't think they were still using that school as a Head Start at that point. I think the Head Start school.
I don't know. We never even went to Bobby Bonds during that time. We never even went.
Okay, well, I lived literally Douglas Avenue and Bobby Bonds Park.
Did you guys go and play at Bobby Bonds?
It was literally our front yard. We went to the gym. The pool was across the street. They used to do Olympic trials they still do Olympic trials at that pool at Bobby Bonds. We used to go to, I went to that Head Start. Like, that's where I went to school from. There's a set of twins that we went to high school with that went to that school. And that's how I knew those twins before we got to high school.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I knew them. And,
Well, I went to the park on up the street by Park Avenue.
You went to Boardwell Stratton Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was close to your church. So that was close to your church. So we were always there. And right in front of, facing University Avenue and partially on Douglas Avenue, the corner of Douglas and University, was the Head Start School and what is now the Cesar Chavez Community Center. Well, that parking lot of the Head Start is in a U shape. And so they used to call it the U, or the shape of the parking lot. And of course, it's University. That was the hub of drug activity when I was growing up. But of course, I knew all the drug dealers, so I could walk freely through there with no problem. I probably knew all the prostitutes too, because they were probably like the moms and aunties of kids I grew up with because of drugs. So it's crazy that what was going on there was completely over my head. And I don't know if it was because while we were going to Bobby Bonds, it was daytime, and while we weren't really touched by the real seedy, nasty part of what was going on view, But it's crazy that this is what's going on, like right in my front yard, and I didn't know a thing about it.
The innocence of childhood as well, though, I guess. But I mean, saying your mom knew because she worked in the middle of it, but my mom didn't know nothing about it.
Right. So I guess you had to be intimate with what was really going down. Right. What was going down. And, working at a liquor store, one of the few that was, I think Western Liquor Store was the liquor store that was in Riverside. I mean, we had some, on Kansas, the green store that's on, I'm telling all the damn landmarks. The green store that was on Kansas and Cuckoo's, which is no longer Cuckoo's, but Cuckoo's on 12th Street. But like University, that's where people were who worked at UCR and some of the businesses, they would go there. So it was the haves and the have-nots going to Western Liquor Store. You know, if you didn't, the only other liquor store you would go to was La Bodega, but that meant that you lived closer to Arlington and Magnolia than you did on the east side. So one of the
They're
places,
still open, aren't they? Isn't that liquor store still open?
Western was sold a long time ago. I think Western liquor store is probably like, they've built up a lot of business, so it's not even there anymore. There's like an entire complex of restaurants and other businesses there, so it's not even there anymore. Like KFC is not even there anymore.
Yeah, I know exactly where it's at. I just don't pay attention when I'm there.
Yeah, Western liquor store hasn't been there in a very, even before I moved away. So it's at least 20 years ago that it.
Well, you know, I moved before you moved, so.
So it was closed long before I moved from Riverside. So after his arrest in 1992, he's found guilty in 1995 of killing 12 women and attempting to kill another one. But they think he's responsible to up to 22 murders of prostitutes in Riverside. They did link him also to a 1988 murder of a woman in San Bernardino. Let's see here. So he actually got the death penalty. He tried to appeal that sentence, but it's been upheld, and he's been at San Quentin ever since. So one of the places that he dropped the bodies off was in an industrial park in Riverside. And when they're describing this in some of the videos, because you're from Riverside, I was like, oh, I know where that is. That's over there by Massachusetts. You know, they're talking about industrial park Riverside. So all these places, that the landmarks that he's dropping these bodies off, are very familiar to Brandon. He's also called the Lake Elsinore Killer because he was dropping the bodies in Lake Elsinore as well. Let's see here. I think also, like, Brandy didn't know about this killer, but I had read something about him maybe 10 years ago. And it was interesting to me because he was dropping bodies off in the river bottom. If you're from Riverside, you know what the river bottom is. It is literally, it's near Mount Rubidoux, and just boggy place. You know, if you're in the middle there and it rains, you're going to get some flash flood. So he was dropping the bodies off. And one of the places, Brandon, he dropped the bodies off was near your great-grandmother's property, right by the 60 freeway. So, to paint a picture of this, the 60
freeway. Near there?
Huh?
You said where?
By Aunt Nancy's property. Between Fairmont and your great-grandmother's property, he dropped a body over there. And that's what made me like spark this. I was like, I know exactly where that is. He dropped a body. So Fairmont Park is a huge property in Riverside. You know, man-made lakes.
So he was dropping them underneath the bridge.
Yes.
Are you kidding?
Yes.
So I lived right there.
Right. So you know where the horse farm used to be behind Aunt Nancy's property, your grandmother's property?
Mm-hmm.
And then then the horse farm is no longer there. And then on the other side, there was the freeway that went through, and then the other side. He dropped it on the other side of the freeway.
That's probably why he was able to kill so many, because they didn't connect. They didn't connect any of these.
Right. So that's
and
also,
probably because they are prostitutes.
Right. So that was also the area that I'm speaking of is largely unincorporated, even though there's a major park right there. They put the freeway. The freeway starts from is that Market Street? Starts from Market Street and then turns into the freeway. Well, it used to turn into the freeway. Now it's just all freeway. But they actually did eminent domain. Brandy's great-grandmother used to own all of this property, and the county claims eminent domain so they can put the freeway through it, so it bisected it. So on one side, you had some houses and a horse farm and the park. On the other side was just river bottom. And then beyond that, if you go a little bit further up the freeway, that left side of the freeway going west in the 60 freeway west, you had homes still unincorporated, but you still had homes. But on that right side was either river bottom, mountains, or industrial areas. No one was going to check. So he dropped a body over there, and I knew exactly where it was when they talked about it. So that's what, when I first heard about it, I was like, I think I know where that is. And anytime a Californian, and maybe people from other states do this too, but as a Californian, anytime I hear about something familiar, I want to pinpoint exactly where this place is to see if I know where it is, like by the block. I want to know where it is. And that's what made me think about the story so much, because he was literally dropping bodies in our backyard and we knew nothing about it.
It was good you weren't killing black ones, because we would have definitely known who they were.
Exactly. Because like you said, you were living across the street from your great grandmother at that time, weren't you? In the house across the street. So
I was living in my grandmother's house.
Yeah. Brandy would have been maybe 500 to 600 yards away from
that's too close.
Across the freeway. The freeway was literally in her great grandmother's backyard. Like that's how close it was to the fence. And then the freeway. And then on the other side of the freeway is where he was dropping bodies.
Yeah, like our front yard faced the freeway.
Yeah.
Like we could hear the freeway all hours of the night.
Oof. So Brandy is going to school at our middle school, because I was going to middle school at that time on the other side of town.
Well, it was elementary time, because he was killing during that time too, while we were in elementary. Yeah. That's when I lived there.
Yeah. So, but by 1991, though, we were at Mission Middle School.
Yeah.
In 1991. So when he's active still, we are in middle school and he's dropping bodies in and around this area all the way to Lake Elsinore.
I didn't know about the bodies he was dumping there.
Yep.
It's creepy.
So it's creepy.
That's real creepy.
It's crazy, because think about all the people
all
that
I think about is, did I walk past this, especially Brandy, walk past this area when he was driving by, or did I just barely miss it? Or it's kind of creepy.
I mean, he's dropping bodies in her backyard.
Pretty much in her backyard.
Active in my front yard. He's picking up prostitutes in my front yard in a neighborhood where I'm walking to McDonald's. I'm walking into Tina's, because Tina's was across the street on University. Delia's Grinders. And if you're ever in Riverside, California, please stop at Delia's Grinders on University, because that is the best experience of your life. So I'm walking to Delia's. This is when Delia's still had the, you couldn't sit down inside Delia's. You had to go to it still had the outside window where you would order your food. So you were standing outside waiting for your food. And even at Tina's was so small that you ordered your food and stood outside. And it was nothing.
Yeah, you couldn't go inside. It wasn't enough room.
Wasn't enough room. So you calling your order, just tell them you're there and wait outside. So this man is active at the time. And like I said, my brothers and I would walk to Western Liquor Store. And what we would do is we would go through the back of my grandmother's house, the alley, through the alleys of a couple other streets, and then end up on Ottawa, and then make the turn to go on across the street to on the University to go to Western Liquor Store where my mom would work, and we would go get snacks and stuff and come back home. Or we would walk to Thrifty's. Thrifty's was a couple blocks down, and we're still walking. Yeah, we weren't allowed to walk to Thrifty's going down University because of the activity. Wow, thunder. But we walked through the alley and the parking lot where we used to be the bowling alley to go to Thrifty's. Still lots of activity in this area. And at the time, there's a whole damn serial killer, not only the crackhead and whoever else and the gangbangers, we got a whole ass serial killer that we know nothing about.
And the blanket lady.
And the blanket lady. But the blanket lady wasn't bothering me.
She wasn't trying to hurt nobody.
Nah, the blanket lady and Old Man Freeman. Do you remember Old Man Freeman? He used to sit on the corner and he was either preaching to you, he used to carry a Bible, but he used to be a boxer. but maybe got a little shell shock
Yeah.
and turned into an alcoholic, and he would preach to you and then ask for money. So that was Freeman. The blanket lady, I guess this is the Riverside nostalgia show. The blanket lady was a lady. She literally wore a bunch of blankets. Like she had no shoes on. She would walk around Riverside with all these blankets on, and she was very naked underneath these blankets, y'all. And
Very.
if you made her mad, she would flash you.
Oh, okay.
Flash. So it's like all these characters are active during this time, and also a serial killer. I don't know if you knew about the guy that was that would go around that was laying on a gurney with his colostomy bag. You remember that guy?
I don't remember that guy.
Okay, there was a guy who used to sell drugs.
Where did he used to be at? Was he over by McDonald's?
No, well, he would go up and down University, but most of the time you'd see him by Western on Ottawa. Because remember, there was the motels, the two motels that was there, one behind churches and one across the street, and then the laundromat. So he would be in the laundromat parking lot and at that motel. I think it was a Motel 6. I was back there. But he was laying on his stomach on a gurney with a white sheet over his bottom half and his colostomy bag selling drugs.
What?
Now I remember him.
What?
He sold drugs from his gurney.
That's
laid on his stomach, and there was I don't know if it was his hoe or his assistant, if you want to call her his assistant, and she would push him up and down the street. He would take the underneath.
That's a sight.
Underneath his body and sell
you gotta do. You gotta do what you gotta do.
This is just painting a picture of what university looked like growing up and during the time.
It was some characters of folks.
It was some characters. One of the prostitutes that I remember, my mom mentioned a prostitute named Kate. I remember her. She was a prostitute, but then she actually became a pimp. And my mom said that's when she was pulling her girls in. Sweet and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
She talked to us and whatever because she knew that we were my mom's kids. Sweet as a peach. And so, like you think about prostitutes and people on drugs, they're just regular people who have issues or going through something, you know what I mean, or doing something, but if they know you, they still have good personalities. So there was her, and then there was one named Coco. Coco was trans, pre-op, no-op trans.
Oh, okay.
Coco was tall as shit.
Now, Coco sounds familiar to me.
Coco with the afro.
Coco sounds very familiar to me.
Coco used to wear a big ass afro. And she was active on the block, the U. Everybody knew that Coco was really biologically male. Coco had a lot of clients. And she would come into the liquor store or whatever on these huge, tall heels. And there was a few times where people would challenge Coco because they're like, oh, you're a, I hate to say the word, but FAGGOT and all this stuff.
I don't even know Coco, and I know that's not the game.
Right. And all this stuff, call her all kinds of names. Man, Coco used to carry a razor in her mouth. And she had
real hood
great razors in her afro.
The real hood chicks were the ones that carried in their mouth. Like, yes. It's hood.
That's a skill.
That's a skill.
She had one in her afro, and she had one of those afro picks, and it was filed down to points. But my mom told me a story of Coco, of someone who worked in the store with her, challenging Coco, like, talking or whatever. And Coco was like, I'm still a man. Hold on. Coco took that grown man outside in the alley, a person that worked with my mom. And if I tell you this person, I'm not going to say his name, even though I'm just not going to say his name. But this was
Coco really tall?
Yes. Really tall, about your complexion.
I remember who Coco is.
Yes. Took this person outside in that alley behind Western Liquor Store and mollywopped his ass. And the person that she beat was a thickly built man me, whooped his ass. Was like, you know, just because this is, you know, I wear a dress, this don't get it fooled. I'm still a man. This is just painting a picture of what University Avenue was. So listening to the documentary of Born, what is it, Born a Killer, you know, Born Evil, I think it is on YouTube. I'll link it. Um, Listening to that and listen to the female cop, the lady cop, talk about University Avenue, and I'm like, yeah, it was bad, but it really wasn't. You know,
I mean, they made it sound like it was.
It made it sound horrible. I thought it was true.
Well, I don't know, maybe because if you're there and you're always, I mean, you have these food places that you go to, you're always there, and you don't notice, you don't see it
and these are
from what
your
an
people,
outsider sees it.
right? These are your people. You know, these are
Yeah.
people that you've seen every day or every other day. So it's just flavor seasoning in your normal everyday life. And she talked about the lady cop talks about heroin, people using heroin and crack. I'm like, first of all, you might have been able to get some crack on University, but the heroin users weren't on University. The heroin users used to be on Park Avenue. So I was like, ma'am, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong. The heroin users were on Park Avenue. They weren't on University. I mean, you might have had some, but if you wanted to know some dens where they were using heroin and everything else, you went to Park Avenue, over the Park Avenue and 14th. You remember
She
when
sounded real hurt. So
over there?
she had, in the documentary, it sounded like she felt like she could have saved all the prostitutes. She couldn't, but the neighborhood was just so horrible that she couldn't do it.
No, it wasn't.
I
And
was like, did she know all these prostitutes? Because one minute you said you're trying to get them off the street, then next minute you said you make it seem like you know them all. Then you said that the area was really, really, really bad because they had heroin and crackheads. I was like, well, which one is it? Well, what is it? What's going on?
No, there were.
Well, talking, and you know, some of those heroin and crackheads might have been your family members, so you wasn't feeling the same way about how she's looking at it. This is a white woman who ain't from that side of town. Even for the white folks that were over there, these is your people. Like, you know, that's your auntie over there strung out in your you know, second cousin, or just people that you see in the neighborhood. So her view of it, because I called Brandy and I was like, I don't see that. I don't remember this university that this lady is talking about. I mean, she's making it sound like normal people couldn't exist unless you were like
a crackhead
or strung out.
She made it seem like it was Skid Row. She made it seem like it was Skid Row. And I promise you, when we were growing up, as much activity was going on University Avenue, I didn't see any like homeless people sleeping on University. You saw them sleeping on University downtown by the bus stop, but you didn't see on the east side, which is where this activity was. You didn't see any homeless people sleeping on the street on the east side. You might have seen them in parks or whatever, but on University, you didn't see that. There was a lot of activity. But again, maybe it
looking up now, it wouldn't have been safe for you to be closing your eyes on University.
Right. It's worse now than it was then. She, and like you said, Randy, maybe it's because we're familiar with it and we're a little biased. Last week we were talking about trying to figure out if the two gentlemen that they questioned in Riverside in connection with the Doodler case, if we knew them, or how could we find out? Because even in the 80s and 90s, you still knew everybody that was in Riverside. One of the true things that they said about Riverside in that documentary was that Riverside was basically was known about based on the citrus industry and had like a real Southern feel. Probably the reason why it had a Southern feel is because it was racist as fuck back in the day. It was an all white town. You had a lot of migrant workers for the citrus, but the migrant workers could not live in Riverside proper. My grandfather moved to Riverside in the 50s, late 50s. He moved to Riverside. He could not walk downtown Riverside with his lunch pail He could not walk with a metal lunch belt. I don't know why this is true. But my grandmother would pack his lunch. You remember those metal lunch pails? Like look like
Mm-hmm.
the yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about.
The silver ones.
Yeah, the silver ones. He
Yeah,
couldn't have
with
one.
the little handle.
Right. He couldn't have one. He had to carry his lunch in a paper sack.
What? Mm.
You could not walk downtown Riverside during certain times if you were Black. You can still tell in Riverside where the migrant workers were supposed to live, and where all the workers were supposed to live, and that was nearer to the actual citrus groves, where a lot of Hispanic and Black families still live, which is where UCR is, which is University of Riverside, California at Riverside. A lot of those families still live there. Now, since UCR is a major university, of course, gentrification has come in and tried to change the neighborhoods, but you can still tell,
Especially on university.
right, you can still tell where the migrant families were relegated to is because they still live next to these orange groves. Everything else downtown in the historic districts, you can tell that too. So it was very racist and had, like they said, it had the very Southern vibe to it. And remained that way, and remained with a certain type of small town feel with a big city presence. Because they said that Riverside was a suburb of Los Angeles, which is dumb as hell. Riverside has never been a suburb of Los Angeles because Riverside, right? Riverside is its own county. You have a Los Angeles County, Orange County, San Bernardino County, and San Diego County, all surrounding Riverside County. And then the city of Riverside is its seat. So how can Riverside be a suburb of Los Angeles? That was just a way for people to kind of familiarize themselves with the area because they only knew LA. But Riverside is its own independent county, independent city, and had its own vibe and sense of wealth and attitude, which it still does. But yeah, so he said, have this small town vibe, and this type of a crime was unknown in Riverside, to have a serial killer in Riverside. Now they've had killings, of course, but I mean, the only other serial killers that really touched Riverside were the Hillside Strangler. That touched Riverside. The Manson, I think some of the Mansons came through Riverside, or outskirts of the county areas, and Richard Ramirez. But that wasn't necessarily their killing ground. They just happened to kind of come through the area, and there were some killings there, but it wasn't their killing ground. This guy was in the middle of the city of Riverside killing, and we didn't know about it. Brandy, were you able to find anything from the Press Enterprise that mentioned him? Me neither.
Anything.
I thought there's a story from the LA Times about him from 1992. This was a story by Patrick McDonald, February 17th of 1992. And it talks about William Suff being one of the neighbors, and how he would buy soda and ice cream for the kids in the neighborhood. So he was kind of like an all-American kind of guy. And so
I think you kind of had to be that. I mean, you couldn't be a weirdo,
right?
And everybody would be, looking at you a certain way. They'd be like, "Oh, it must be William killing those people. He's a weirdo."
Right.
So
they didn't. He lived in Lake Elsinore, so that's where he lived. And so he was like a neighborhood favorite to all the kids. And so it reminded me of John Wayne Gacy. How John Wayne Gacy would have barbecues and all these festivals out, and everyone in the neighborhood was like, "Oh, that's the clown guy," and you go undetected because you're the nicest person in the neighborhood. So
you come to find out you're eating human pork.
Right, because John Wayne Gacy was serving the people the bodies that was under his crawl space. So yes, this article from 1992, and I'll post this in the description. There's a link to this in the description as well. But just talked about how he was just a nice neighbor, buying soda and candies and stuff
I
for
mean,
kids.
they always say that kind of stuff. I would have, I can't believe it. I never would have thought that he was that type of person. I mean, they always say that. They always say it.
Yeah. But do you, I mean, I guess some people, if you really don't know them, they can go under the radar and you really don't know who they are until you know who they are. You
There's
know,
people that I grew up with around who knew, and I would have never known if they had been a big time killer or whatever, because these are just people in my neighborhood.
right.
And then you might find out later, oh, he did this, and that. But I mean, you don't think that, especially as a kid, you're not thinking, okay, this guy was a big time pimp and he was selling drugs outside of his trunk and all this. All you see is the guy you pass by every day when you're coming home from the bus stop and be like, hi. And he'd be like, hi, how's your people? And you say fine and you keep walking
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
you're a kid.
I,
And then you find out in that order there's this big time pimp and had all these prostitutes that you know and all this stuff.
yeah, there's been
You don't
plenty of
know that when
stories
you're a kid.
that my parents have told me about people that I knew growing up. And I thought these were the nicest people in the world. And like Bill Suff, there was a couple. Um, I loved these two people. You know, see what I'm saying? Like I loved these two people. Like I kind of knew as a kid they were different, but it didn't matter because they were always so nice to me. My parents would let them take me to the store and everything. And maybe it was because what they were doing in their private lives really didn't affect who, like, that they were, good, I guess good people, what you would consider good people, because it wasn't even a question. Like my grandmother, who was very protective of me, didn't blink an eye at me being with these people. And I was never, let me say, I was never harmed. But when I got older, I'm like, they did what? They were who? Like, what? They did what? I find out that they were like hardened heroin addicts. And they used to hang out on Park Avenue. That's why I know that Park Avenue was the place to do heroin. They were hardened heroin addicts. Like for real. But to me, they were just weird people that I happened to love. That treated me nice. That we like, let's go to the store, let's go to the store, let's go here. All right,
And then
I'm gonna
now
go.
as an adult, you be like, I would have never let my kids hang around with such and such and such. But those is the neighborhood folks. Those are the people that
Mm-hmm.
they have always been around and knew, and
And it was
those
kind
are
of like
your people,
our
your
parents
neighbor.
knew them prior to their addiction or prior to doing whatever that they did. So they knew who at the core who they were prior to that. But the problem with William Suff is these people in Lake Elsinore didn't know that he was a murderer
Killed
and
his
was on
kid.
parole. And then when he married his second wife, like Jackie said, he was 21 years older than her. It seemed like they in the LA Times article, the gentleman said that she might have known about his prior conviction. He ends up doing the same thing to her child. So they didn't know who he was. He was very capable and very successful at putting forth this facade of goodness and Americana to kind of reflect the neighborhood and the attitude of Lake Elsinore. And Lake Elsinore used to be like kind of like a little highbrow place, We used to go to the lake and all that stuff. Now it's just nasty. But it used to be the place to kind of go to. So he might have given that reflection as a white guy working for the county of Riverside and, nice, doing extra for the kids. And the entire time, he's a two-time child killer and a prostitute killer hiding under the radar, delivering furniture to the police task force uh, uh, center and
That's just
asking
crazy.
cops about the murders that he's committing. So the women that he killed, and I usually never like go over the names of the victims, but these are ones that he's convicted of. Of course, they say that he might be responsible for 22. These are 12. Kimberly Lytle, who's 28. She was either found or killed June 28th, 1989. Tina Leal, 23, in December of 89. Darla Ferguson, January 1990. Carol Miller, February 1990. Cheryl Coker, November 1990. So he had a long period between Carol Miller and Cheryl Coker. And I don't know really why, because that's the long. Well, Kimberly Lytle was in June. 6 months later, he killed Tina. So I don't, and then, but then right a couple weeks after that, he kills Darla. So it seems like he goes through these periods where he'll kill one person, 6 or 7 months go by before he kills another, and then they're in rapid succession. Um, Susan Sternfeld came in December of 1990. Kathleen Milne in January of 1991. Sherry Latham, July of 1991. So again, we have another 6 or 7 month period before murders. And then August of 1991, he kills Kelly Hammond. September, he kills Catherine McDonald. October of that same year, he kills Delilah Zamora, and the last of his murders was Eleanor Casares in December of 1991. So it's crazy that he'll kill one person, go through 6 or 7 months without a kill, a confirmed one at least, and then he'll do 2 or 3, wait another 6 or 7 months, do 2 or 3, wait another 6 or 7 months, do 2 or 3. So I'm wondering if during those long periods of time, is he committing murders that he hasn't been convicted of? Like, did he commit murders and they didn't attribute those to him? Because why would he go 6 or 7 months without killing somebody? And then once he does it 2 or 3, maybe 4 times in rapid succession. Like,
we don't know. Maybe he was working overtime. Maybe he had some things going on in his life at the time. Who knows?
Yeah, you really don't know. I mean,
they were
because
hot on the street at one point,
it was weird. Wasn't he like even though he was getting the services of prostitute, and it was also like, wasn't he like an activist? Like, we don't need prostitutes.
But that's normally what happens, is that you have someone who's real vocal against something, yet they're doing the thing that they're talking against. In the Born to Kill, they talked about he was in the band. He was like a band kid. He really wasn't popular, but he wasn't like, he was known at school, but he wasn't a super popular kid. So there was really, like, he was one of those people who he was really vanilla, really paper bag brown. Like, he didn't raise any eyebrows. His behavior was okay. His grades were, he was just like one of those people who just glide through the middle, because there was nothing really special about what he was doing. His behavior wasn't bad, so he could get attention, and it wasn't like he was popular, so he would get attention. So you really didn't know where he would fall into.
That's thunder.
Which is, I just heard some over here too. So it's storming here in Dallas. So yeah, he was really like one of those guys who flies under the radar, which is why he was able to fool Riverside Sheriff's Department for so long, because why would you suspect Bill? He doesn't look crazy. He actually looks like somebody who I probably, had, what I'm saying? Like, he looks like a person that was in my neighborhood when I was growing up, in Rubio. Yeah. So if y'all not familiar with Riverside, of course it's, a lot of unincorporated areas. Rubio was one of those areas. So you can take a look at, I'll post some maps. I'll try to find a map of where he dumped the bodies, so you can kind of get an idea of where he was and what he was doing at the time. But it was very interesting to finally see a story that was so connected to a place where we were right in the middle of and had no idea what this was going on.
Right up in BW backyard.
Yeah. I'm still going to have to ask my mom about the 2 gentlemen who were in connection with the doodler. I hadn't got a chance to ask her that, but I will inquire, because if anybody knows, she knows. She knows somebody. So if anybody knows,
amazing lady.
My mom, I will say this: my mom was nosy as hell, and she just knows a lot.
Amazing.
She worked at the Head Start, so that's when I was going to the Head Start. I was like assistant director at the Head Start. And then she worked in the school system, Riverside County school system, in Riverside Unified School System for years and years and years, like almost 30 years. So she knows everybody. She knows their parents. She knows their kids. She knows their grandkids. All of that. So
Everybody.
So if anybody knows what happened with those two guys, so we're gonna find out about that, and then I'm gonna ask her if I can also talk about the case of the police officer, the Riverside police officer that was killed in the 60s as well, because that is also connected to my family. So I will, my side of the family, right? So this won't have anything. This don't have anything to do with our mutual side of the family. This got something to do with the other side. So
Other pinch.
if we can talk about
Other pinch.
yeah, if I'm allowed to talk about that, and still get invited to the family reunion next year. So we'll see. All right. So any last minute news or anything before we wrap up for the week? No.
Y'all might be without lights in a minute, so
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like really bad.
It's coming down for real. I don't know if y'all heard that big clap about a couple minutes ago, but I looked up like
mine has been literally going for like so that's why I keep like looking over like it's like shaking my house. So like, well, ain't gonna have no lights soon.
Yeah, so the only thing we're gonna see is the lights on these phones in a minute. So we will wrap up this week of Black Coffee and Crime. All the stories that we talked about in the documentary, Born to Kill, we'll talk about, I will post that in the description. And of course, you can always check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Black Coffee and Crime, and hit us up by email at info@blackcoffeeandcrime.com. So we will see you next week with a new story. Please watch out on our social media so that you can see what we talk about.
no friends still hit.
So good night, be safe, be blessed, and enjoy that. Good night.
Good night.